A commercial property can look like a serious investment before anyone questions the building behind the income. The lease may look stable, the cap rate may look attractive, the location may look strong, but commercial real estate is not only bought on income. You are buying the building that must support that income. A building with systems, a roof, compliance obligations, tenant requirements, future use constraints, and sometimes capital needs that are not obvious when the deal first looks profitable. On the spreadsheet, the deal can appear simple. Rent comes in, expenses go out, yield remains. But the real question is not only, does the investment work on paper? The better question is, can this building physically, legally, and operationally support the income I am buying? The spreadsheet may show yield. The asset may require capital. That is where many commercial acquisitions become more complex than they first appear. A rent roll can show what tenants are paying today. A cap rate can suggest what the property should be worth. An acquisition deck can make the investment look stable, efficient, and easy to understand. But the physical asset has its own financial language. It speaks through systems that may be aging, a roof that may need work, compliance questions, tenant fit-out requirements, only shadows melting into darkness, energy performance, access limitations, and maintenance records that can change the real cost of ownership. For the investor, the issue is not that the spreadsheet is useless. The issue is trusting the numbers before testing what must happen inside the asset to protect them. Because if the property absorbs capital after purchase, the yield on paper may not be the yield you actually keep. And the first place this usually appears is not in the rent roll. It is in the systems keeping the income alive. And the first place this usually appears is not in the lobby. It is in the systems keeping the income alive. Elevators, heating and cooling, electrical capacity, fire protection, drainage, ventilation, controls. In a commercial asset, these are not background details. They are part of the operating engine. If they fail, tenants are affected. If they need modernization, capital is absorbed. If access is difficult, every repair becomes slower, more disruptive, and more expensive. This is where commercial ownership separates itself from a simple income calculation. A system can be working on the day you buy the property, but working today does not mean financially neutral tomorrow. If that system is approaching a major life cycle decision, the investor's question changes. Not, does it work? But, when will this system demand capital? And was that capital included in the deal? Then comes the part of the asset many investors underestimate because it looks simple from the ground. The roof, the structure, the facade, the envelope, the way water moves across the property. In commercial real estate, scale changes the consequence. The size of the asset can turn a small technical issue into a capital decision. A roof issue is not only a repair question, it can become a tenant disruption question. A water ingress issue is not only a maintenance problem, it can become an operating continuity problem. And a structural or envelope concern is not only technical. It can affect contractor pricing, insurance discussions, lender confidence, and future exit. This is why a serious investor does not only ask, is the building standing? They ask, what physical burden could this asset transfer to me after acquisition? A commercial building is not valuable only because it has space. It is valuable because that space can be used. And this is where the investment assumption needs to be tested. A unit may look perfect for a restaurant, but the asset may not have the extraction, gas, waste, access, or service capacity required for that use. An office may look easy to divide, but fire strategy, accessibility, escape routes, parking, or local rules may limit what can actually be done. A warehouse may look flexible, but loading, floor capacity, circulation, or permitted use may narrow the tenant pool. For the investor, this becomes a direct income question. If the asset cannot support the intended use, the space may be harder to lease, slower to reposition, and more expensive to adapt. So before trusting the rent potential, ask, what uses can this property truly support without absorbing more capital than the income can justify? This is why adaptive reuse can be powerful, but it can also be misunderstood. An empty office does not automatically become apartments. A retail block does not automatically become a restaurant destination. A warehouse does not automatically become creative workspace. The idea may look simple in the investment memo, but the asset may have a different answer. A new use may require different plumbing routes, different fire strategy, different ventilation, different access, different acoustic performance, and sometimes a different structural or compliance logic. So the question is not only, could this building become something else? The real question is, can it become something else without absorbing so much capital that the new income model becomes weaker than expected? For the investor, adaptive reuse is not just a story about potential. It is a test of whether the asset can support a different income model before the conversion cost changes the deal. Even if the asset works technically, the investment still depends on the market. Because a commercial property is not only occupied by tenants, it is judged by tenants. A lease may look strong today, but future income depends on whether the space still fits what tenants need tomorrow. An office has to support how companies now use space. A retail unit has to attract businesses that can actually pay the rent. A warehouse has to match modern expectations for logistics, access, power, loading, and circulation. For the investor, this is where income durability becomes exit confidence. You may not only be buying today's rent, you may be buying the question the next tenant, lender, or buyer will ask later. Does this asset still fit the market? This is why due diligence is not there to kill the deal. A serious investor does not only review the rent roll, they test the asset behind the rent roll. They look at the systems that may need capital, the roof or structure issues that could affect operation, the uses the property can realistically support, the compliance path that may shape the project, the tenant profile the asset can truly serve, and the questions a future buyer would need answered before paying a strong price later. This is where the investigation becomes an advantage, because once the asset is understood, the investor can negotiate with clarity, budget with discipline, price risk before acquisition, and decide whether the property is a strong commercial asset, a repositioning project, or a capital trap waiting behind the yield. The real lesson is simple. A serious commercial investor does not only ask, what is the rent? What is the cap rate? Who is the tenant? What is the asking price? But they are not enough. The deeper question is, can this asset physically, legally, and operationally support the income I am buying? Because the spreadsheet may show the opportunity, but the building behind the spreadsheet decides how much capital, time, adaptation, compliance, and market confidence that opportunity will require. Commercial real estate can be a strong acquisition, but before you trust the income, verify the asset behind it. That is property risk intelligence.